UFC San Diego is almost here. I'm going to give you my final picks. We're going to talk about some prop opportunities. We're going to build some lineups, so make sure you watch until the end. You can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. Last week, big week. Jeff Neal came through. A lot of you guys did very well. We crushed it in terms of straight bets, and we'll talk a little bit more about straight betting this time around. We have a nice 13 fight card to work with. A lot of the card held up. We don't have late cancellations, at least not yet. And for Draftkings, they finally added the Jason Witt Josh Quinlan fight that we'll talk about in just a minute. But if you haven't already, go back and watch the video that was posted the other day. That's our predictions video. We go over the slate fighter by fighter, salary by salary, talk about spots that we like, spots that we don't like. I have changed my mind on a few spots this week, and I'll go over that with you, but since there haven't been any cancellations, no major changes, we could jump right into the value plays. These are plays at 8,000 and below, and at the top of the list for me is Nina Nunes sitting at 7,900. I still like Nina Nunes to win this fight. I think the striking output is there. I think she's got better striking technique. She's got good takedown defense, and that's really the Achilles heel of Cynthia Calvillo nowadays. And Calvillo's been fighting pretty stiff competition lately, but she really has not looked like the old version of herself. I will go out on a limb here, and I will say that Cynthia Calvillo is washed. Now for Nina Nunes, when it comes to DraftKings, she's typically not throwing up crazy numbers when it comes to fantasy points, but we may need her this week. If you want to plug her into your cash games, I think that makes sense. We're going to be working with her when we build lineups in just a little bit, and if you want to take Nina Nunes by decision, that's one of the better props of the week.
Write that down, write that down!
If this fight plays out on the feet like I think it will, I think we see a situation where she goes north of 100 significant strikes. She's been out of action for a while, so she's probably really going to want to get after it, make the most of her opportunity. So I like Nina Nunes this week as one of the value plays. She's not a must when it comes to your tournament lineups, but Nina Nunes this week by decision makes a ton of sense. Next is a drum that I've been banging all week, Nate the Train Landwehr. I think he gets it done in this spot. Like we talked about earlier in the week, the power is there, obviously. The output is there, the grappling is there. We saw that last time out against Ludovic Klein. And Onama is very hittable and sometimes gets complacent, like he has lapses in judgment, kind of like a Jai Herbert situation. We saw that against Garrett Armfield in his last fight, where he really just wasn't pushing the kind of pace that you would want somebody like David Onama to push, at least not early. And that's the issue. If Nate the Train starts getting up on you early, you're in a bad spot because this guy is just going to keep coming forward. This guy's got crazy experience. He hasn't been in the UFC all that long, but he's a former M1 global champion, just like Bruno Silva. This man has done a lot more in the sport of MMA than David Onama so far, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see him pick up a finish in this fight. And if he doesn't pick up a finish, well, we know that he's got that good output. So if this fight plays out on the feet mostly, or if he's stuffing takedowns and finds himself in a dominant position, the output's going to be there. He's got a very safe scoring floor when it comes to a Nate Landwehr win. He's going to be somebody that I'm pretty heavy on DraftKings this week. I hope that our guy can get it done. Yasmin Lucindo making her UFC debut at only 20 years old. A lot of question marks. Very young, very green, of course. But in a lower level women's MMA fight where there's a lot of question marks, you would probably want the person who's going to look for the takedowns, look for the submissions, and has a stronger ground game. Now, I'm not saying that Lucindo's Mackenzie Dern on the mat. I'm not saying she has a landscaping company level ground game, but I would assume hers is better than Jauregui, and I'm going to lean on that this week because she's going to come in at super low ownership. People aren't dying to click this button right here, I promise you. And again, skill-wise, there's a lot of question marks, so I don't have a ton of confidence in this underdog, but I am confident that not a lot of people are going to get here this week. And for leverage, especially if you're playing a lot of lineups, you might want to get here as well. And our next value play would be at 7,500 with Priscila Cash as an underdog. I don't know how anybody could have more confidence in Ariane Lipski after what happened with her weight cut last week. Now, they are up a weight class this week, but I don't think that favors Lipski at all because she still had to cut that weight. She still didn't have a great weight cut. She still was medically deemed unfit to fight. So you're looking at a situation where I thought that the line would be closer instead of wider. The opposite has happened, which means we're getting a slightly better price on Zombie Girl this week. And I think that when they start trading in the pocket, the power on the side of Cachoeira is going to be much more than the power on the side of Lipski. And when you look at Priscila Cachoeira's record in the UFC, she's sitting at 3-4, and her last win was questionable in a lot of people's eyes. But when you look at her losses, I mean, Jillian Robertson, Luana Carolina, Molly McCann, who's on an absolute tear, Valentina Shevchenko, the best. These are fighters that would all smoke Ariane Lipski any day of the week. And not for nothing, Ariane Lipski got finished by Montana De La Rosa, and Montana De La Rosa, at least at this higher level of competition in the UFC, she couldn't finish anyone. She couldn't finish a season of Peaky Blinders.
The Black Midwinter.
And it's only 6 episodes, come on. So give me Zombie Girl this week down there at 7,500. And then our last value play comes all the way down here at 7,100. We have Jason Witt. He's going to be fighting Josh Quinlan this week, just like the Priscila Cachoeira fight, pushed out a week. Now this is a different situation. This fight wasn't moved because of a weight cut. This was moved because Josh Quinlan is a juicehead turkey who pissed hot. And I don't like for Jason Witt that this fight was moved. I don't like for a guy at his age to be cutting weight back-to-back weeks, especially with the way that his chin is. I don't love it. I don't mind, however, that it is up at a higher weight, so maybe the hydration's going to be there. Maybe he'll have a little bit more of a chin. We'll see. I do, however, love how cheap he is this week compared to what he was last week. I believe he was 7,700 last week, so we're getting a big discount here down at 7,100, one of the cheapest fighters on the entire slate. Now, Jason Witt, we all know, has a weaker chin than most of the characters on Bob's Burgers.
Wait a second.
His team is aware of that. You and I know that. Jason Witt knows that. So the game plan is going to be there. Get this guy down to the mat right away. Don't waste any time throwing hands with this kid. Get him on his back right away, because if you stand up with him for too long, he's going to knock you out. I wouldn't even throw a punch if I was Jason Witt, to be completely honest with you. I'd be diving for those legs right away. And if he does that and secures a takedown, once he's on top, he's in a great spot. He does excellent work from a dominant position with his ground and pound. He looks for submissions. Jason Witt on top is a problem. And honestly, if he's able to get in that position and he doesn't find a finish, that pace is really going to wear on Josh Quinlan, might even gas him out if he's forced to wrestle early. So Jason Witt, if he doesn't get flatlined in the first, say, minute and a half of this fight, he has a really safe scoring floor, even in a situation where he loses, making him easily one of the best punt options this week for cash and one of the best lower salary plays when it comes to your tournaments. And we'll do that now. We'll use him to build some lineups. But before we get into the lineup building, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm. You know how the algorithm works. And we really got to put the beats on the algorithm this week, because I need to hit 1,500 subscribers by fight time. I don't want to forfeit 20% of my purse, damn it. So as always, what we'll do is start with cash games. What should we do in cash this week? Well, this is a perfect main event to stack. So we'll grab Chito Vera sitting at 8,500, and then we're going to come down here and grab the other side of the matchup with Dominic Cruz. Now, if you're new to the channel and you're wondering what are cash games, how do I play cash games, what's the point of this? Cash games are just contests that pay out half of the field. Normally you're able to double your money in these kinds of games. These are games that are safer, lower risk, easier to build up your bankroll, which is the most important thing. It's the most important thing because the more you deposit, the more you're letting Draftkings win. We want Draftkings to hate us, you understand? We want to never deposit. The ones that deposit all the time, they're reckless. They're the ones that are losing money. Not you, not me, not gonna happen. And the reason why you want to stack the main event in these kinds of games is because you want to guarantee yourself a winner in your lineup. That way you can bring the scoring floor up as high as you can. So we've stacked the main event. Those of you that know what cash games are probably like, yeah, go on, get on with it, come on. I'm sorry, I have to look out for the new brothers out there. But now we've got Marlon Vera and Dominic Cruz in there. So what I'm going to do is come all the way down here and I'm going to plug Jason Witt in at 7,100. Now our remaining salary per fighter that we can work with is 8,900. That helps us do a lot of things. First, I want to capture the upside that we have with Bruno Silva for sure. I think he knocks Gerald Meerschaert out in the first, at the latest second round this week. Now at this point, I do want to grab Gabriel Benitez because I think he's very live for that first round finish as well. And now we're looking at a situation where if I had this, I'm probably looking at Azamat Murzakanov or Youssef Zalal. Youssef Zalal coming down to bantamweight I really like, and Azamat Murzakanov very live for a knockout. Devin Clark is super hittable. I also think that Devin Clark could be a little intimidated in this spot, and I think he could give up some takedowns as well. So let's say we went with Azamat Murzakanov. We used all the salary. I think this is a really good spot for you to land when you're building your cash games. If you don't want to do that and you take out Azamat Murzakanov and you go with Youssef Zalal, that makes sense too. Now, if you were really high on David Onama, you thought David Onama by knockout was what's going to happen, and that's on the table. David Onama's a monster. I still prefer the Nate Landwehr side, but if you were somebody who wanted to go with David Onama this week, you could. You got 200 salary that you need to make up, so now what we can do is come off of Mowgli Benitez, come back up here to somebody like Martin Buday, who's probably going to get a knockout. That makes a lot of sense too. Now, if you sent me this lineup on Twitter at Kunith MMA, make sure you follow, send me your lineup. I'll tell you what I think. If this is what you showed me, what I would probably suggest that you do, especially in your cash games, is come off of Martin Buday, come up to Godinez, who I think is a lock this week, and then you're back at that same situation with Azamat Meerschaert or Youssef Zalal, whichever you prefer. Let's say you go with Azamat Meerschaert, and this is your cash game lineup. Mwah! You get it? Does that make sense? Nod your head if that makes sense. Okay, good. Now I'll show you what we can do in our tournaments. Let's blow this up. First, I want to show you what is chalk, what I think everybody's going to be doing in your tournaments this week. And with a little editing magic, it's going to show up right on the screen right about now. I think you're going to see a lot of something like this. I think you're going to see a lot of Chito Vera, which you should. He's 8,500, 5 rounds to work, finishing upside, good output, yes. I see a lot of people getting to Ode Osborne. I see a ton of people getting to Bruno Silva, one of the higher owned fighters on the slate. And that's for good reason, because of that early knockout upside. I think Devin Clark comes off the board as the highest owned underdog this week. I think David Onama is going to garner a decent amount of ownership, and then when you look at the available options left at that point, you're going to see Brzeski, you're going to see Meerschaert, you're going to see Jason Witt. No, not many people are going to want to touch the Angela Hill, Charlie Ontiveros range, but I do think that if you're looking at this situation, you're going to either choose between Brzeski or Jason Witt, and I think most people are going to take Jason Witt. Now, I do think that not only Devin Clark will pull a decent amount of ownership, but I think Nate Landwehr also pulls a decent amount of ownership, and it's for good reason. Now, if that happens and you were to come off of somebody like Jason Witt, you've got 8,300 left over, and you can come grab somebody like Youssef Zalal. This is probably something that you'll see a lot of as well. So how do we get different? How do we beat the field? Well, we have to look for leverage. We have to look for fighters that are over-owned. We have to look for fighters that are under-owned to understand what we're going up against. So I'll quickly go over 3 fighters that I think are over-owned, 3 fighters that I think are under-owned, and then we'll build out what tournament lineups should look like based on that. So the first fighter that I think comes in over-owned this week is right up at 8,800. We've got Ode Osborne. Ode's a smart guy. He knows that Tyson Nam has a lot of power. He's going to take his time here. Tyson Nam's not the kind of guy that you just go out there and finish. But I do think a lot of people will be on Ode this week. They like him down at this weight class. Tyson Nam is a ripe 38 years old. But realistically, if Ode Osborne goes the distance this week, he probably puts up a performance similar to what he did against CJ Vergara, scoring 69 points. No thank you. But I do see a lot of people getting here, especially at his price. Ode Osborne will go over-owned. And I believe the other side of that fight goes over-owned with people looking for Tyson Nam for that knockout upside, but I don't know if that's going to happen this week. Earlier in the week, I'd said Tyson Nam by knockout was my pick, but I am backpedaling on that a little bit. I think that he just doesn't throw enough for that to happen. Now, I do think that there's a situation where Tyson Nam still wins, and he wins a decision based on having 1 or 2 bigger moments in the round because of a big punch here and there, but he's super low output, and against a guy like Ode Osborne who's very athletic, he's going to be moving very well. He's going to be looking for takedowns of his own. I don't know if I really like Tyson Nam down at his price, and I think a lot of people are going to get here because the underdogs don't look great. So I believe this fight altogether goes over-owned. Thus, Ode Osborne, Tyson Nam both go over-owned. And then the last fighter that I think goes over-owned this week is right here at 7,800 with Devin Clark. Devin Clark historically puts up decent scores on DraftKings when he does win, but I don't think that he wins this fight, and I think that he's one of the underdogs with name value that people are going to flock to this week. My knee-jerk reaction, like we talked about in the video earlier in the week linked in the description, was that Devin Clark was going to get it done. I thought that Devin Clark, when I saw this being booked, I said, oh, Devin Clark probably wins, and he probably is an underdog in that fight. Well, I feel I was right about one thing. He is an underdog in this fight, but I don't think that he's going to win. He doesn't move his head that well. I think Azamat Meerschaert has too much power, and I think that Azamat Meerschaert is going to be able to take Devin Clark down whenever he wants to. Devin Clark historically not that great at defending takedowns. I think around 30 to 40% of the field this week gets to Devin Clark, and I will not be part of that percentage. Now, the fighters that I think are going to go under-owned, well, for starters, it'd probably be Godinez up at 9,200. Women's MMA, there's not a lot of great underdogs. People typically aren't going to try to press this button, but Lupi could get takedowns in each round. Very good control on top. If Angela Hill gets up, which she probably will, then Lupi's going to be able to just Godinez remat her, take her down again, put up another great DraftKings score like she did against Ariane Carnelozzi. I think that Lupi Godinez is a good play this week. You see the 86 points that she scored against Loma Lukbunmi. That's not encouraging at this price, and I think that's going to keep her ownership low, but I do think that Lupi has a chance to go hard this week. Lupi Godinez definitely under-owned. Another fighter that I think goes under-owned this week is Yasmin Lucindo. Now, she could get knocked out. I don't think that it's going to happen, but it's definitely on the table with the way that her opponent throws punches for sure. But if she wins this fight the way that she would have to fight to win this fight, then she's probably going to score a lot of points because of the grappling, the control time, the finish when they're on the mat, and you're going to see her come in at maybe 6, 7, 8% ownership. Nothing crazy this week. Very under-owned. And then the last fighter that goes under-owned this week, I believe, is going to be Youssef Zalal. So in the video earlier in the week, I talked about how Youssef Zalal, down at bantamweight, training with Brandon Royval, he's going to be ready for the submission attempts that are coming back his way. Damon Blackshear is going to be looking for these submission attempts. He's going to be more comfortable fighting on the ground, especially if he finds himself getting frustrated without being able to touch Youssef Zalal. Zalal historically gets hit very little. Like, this is a recipe for a very long career in this game when you're getting hit as infrequently as he is. So if he gets frustrated and he wants to fight on the mat, even if that means that Youssef Zalal takes him down, which we've seen that happen before, you're looking at a situation where he could score a decent amount of points, and not everybody's going to be wanting to get here. When you got guys on the card like Marlon Vera, you can grab Dominic Cruz. When you got guys like Bruno Silva, Martin Buday, Gabriel Benitez, Josh Quinlan, I mean, you're going to see a situation where these guys that have high finishing upside are going to be taken off the board. Youssef Zalal still might be there, and he probably goes under-owned. So keeping that in mind, we can build some lineups, and I think if you really wanted to get different this week and grab somebody like Lupi, you want to grab Marlon Vera because that makes sense. You want to grab Bruno Silva. I think now you're looking at a situation where you come and you play Youssef Zalal, you play Lucindo, and now you can come down here to somebody like Nate the Train. You've spent all your salary. Not many people are coming with this lineup, I promise you that. If you wanted to come off of Lucindo because you weren't too confident and you wanted to go even further down to somebody like Jason Witt, now you have 400 salary left over. You could change some things about your lineup if you wanted to. If you're scared that he's going to get knocked out right away because David Onama is a beast, then you could come up to somebody like Nina Nunes. Not many people are going to get here. This is a way for you to get different as well, and you actually have built a lineup with some pretty safe matchups. I mean, do you think that Cynthia Calvillo finishes Nina Nunes? Probably not. Do you think that Youssef Zalal gets finished in a loss? Probably not. Bruno Silva knockout, win for Marlon Vera, guaranteed win for Lupi Godinez. This is a safe lineup, but also a different lineup with upside. Obviously, the worry here is Jason Witt at 7,100. Anything could happen, of course. And by anything, I mean him getting knocked out once again. Now, if you wanted to come off of Lupi Godinez and you wanted to grab somebody like Gabriel Benitez at 9,300, you're still able to do that. Gabriel Benitez in the first round, very live for a finish. And there are still some changes that you can make to this kind of lineup. Like if we took out these two underdogs and made some adjustments here, you could double up on the lady dogs here with Priscila Cachoeira and Lucindo both coming in at 7,500. I think your key pieces this week are going to be Marlon Vera. You're going to need him in your lineup, and you're probably going to need Bruno Silva as well. If you were looking for highest finishing upside top down on the card, then I think you're looking at a situation where you probably want to play Bruno Silva, maybe not Marlon Vera because Dominic Cruz is historically tough and hard to hit. So you could grab somebody like Bruno Silva. Then you can grab Martin Buday, who we know packs a serious punch, and Brzeski does not respond well to being hit. I feel like with the way that this lineup is looking, if you're looking for total knockout upside and you want to get different, that's the whole name of the game when it comes to tournaments on DraftKings, then you can come all the way down here and hope that Charlie Ontiveros lands one of his crazy kicks in the first round and puts Gabriel Benitez down. We've seen it before. Now you've got 8,400 per fighter left over, so you're going to want to grab somebody like Nate Landwehr, a lot of knockout upside there. At this point, if we're looking to attack just pure knockout upside, I think you want to grab Josh Quinlan as well, and then you can come back down here to Chito Vera if you wanted, or get extra different and grab somebody like Azamat Murzakanov. off. If these 6 fighters win, the way that they would win is by knockout. A couple of fighters that I'm really not interested in playing. I'm not interested in playing Ariane Lipski this week. I'm really not interested in playing Cynthia Calvillo, Damon Blackshear. I don't think that Devin Clark wins his fight either. So those are some things you could do to get different, build some strong lineups this week. Again, you can send me your lineups on Twitter. Follow me first at Kunith MMA, just out of respect. And I'll give you my honest opinion on your lineups. And if it works, say thank you so much. And if it doesn't work, I didn't give you the advice. And I'll quickly run through a few props for you that I like this week, because why not? When it comes to the rounds, if we look at the round props, I think there are a couple that are just very obvious this week. Youssef Zalal fight, over 2.5, of course. I think the over 2.5 rounds in the Ode Osborne fight is going to be sneaky. If Jason Witt wins the way we think Jason Witt wins, you can get some real good value at -155 when you're looking at the over 1.5 rounds in that fight. Over 2.5 rounds in any women's MMA fight is one of the safer bets in all of MMA, and they're giving us -175 for the Cachoeira fight. Give me that. Give me that. Devin Clark, Azamat Murzakanov, under 2.5. I like that as well. Now in the Calvillo-Nunes fight, like we talked about earlier in the video, we've got Nina Nunes sitting at +225 by decision. We're actually going to parlay that up here. So if we look at the Lupi Godinez decision prop, her current decision prop is sitting right at -150 right now. That's looking pretty good. That's looking pretty good so far. We're at +441. So I'm going to add one more leg to this parlay. It's going to be Bruno Silva by knockout. And I think his knockout line is also, yep, -150. So now you're looking at +800 for these 3 outcomes. And I think they're all very, very likely. So then you could just come over here, put your mortgage on it, and you're in a good spot. Throw $3,000 on that bad boy and you made $27,000, and then you can send me something on Cash App. I mean, if you want. I'm just joking. Don't send me anything. Unless you want to, then you can. But you don't have to. But if you want to, do it. One line that I wanted to look at for this video, it's not on DraftKings Sportsbook yet, but you might have it on your books. Charlie Ontiveros by knockout. That's probably something crazy like +700, +600. If it's like that, you might as well take a shot. And we'll quickly wrap up the video by going through the entire card. I've got Marlon, Vera. I like him inside the distance. I like Nate Landwehr inside the distance. Yasmin, Lucindo. No way this is at the top of the card like this. If it is, I would be shocked. I feel like the order is probably going to get switched around a little bit, but Yasmin, Lucindo inside the distance, Azamat Murzakanov by knockout, Priscila Cachoeira by decision, Bruno Silva by knockout, Lupi Godinez, or Lupita if you want to be formal, she's going to win by decision. Martin Buday by knockout is probably the most likely outcome there. Nina Nunes by decision, Gabriel Benitez by knockout, Ode Osborne by decision, Jason Witt inside the distance, and then Youssef Zalal by decision. Now, if you have made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really, really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm. Best of luck.